October the 12th, 1492. One of the most important days in human history. The world is about to change. Dutch people bring new animals, plants, weapons, diseases, Catholicism, and of course, the Castilian language. But here, human culture has been developing for thousands of years. There are things here that doesn't exist on the other side. And for those things, we have names. Some people say that the most beautiful word in Spanish is apapachar because it comes from Nahuatl and means acariciar con el alma. But this is not true. I'm sorry, but we are not here to be romantic. This is a channel about languages, and today we are going to talk about Native American words that we use all the time in our modern Spanish, and also indigenous words that can't be translated to Spanish or English. This is not a romantic video at all, but I promise it's a really interesting one. Chocolate, tomate are Spanish adaptations of Nahuatl words, and from Spanish they went to many other languages. In English, for instance, is almost the same: chocolate, or tomato, or tomato. But things are not that simple, because in America there were many different peoples with a lot of different languages and dialects. It's clear that Nahuatl had a huge influence in Spanish because it was the language spoken by the Mexicas, or the Aztecs. But there was another huge empire on this continent: Los Incas. They spoke Quechua, and this language, or language family, also had a great impact in our current Spanish. Cóndor, llama, alpaca, or puma are words that come from Quechua. And for those of us who live in South America, the influence of the Inca civilization is even more important. While in Mexico and other countries they say aguacate from Nahuatl, we say palta from Quechua. While they say elote, at the south we say choclo. One of the national dishes in Argentina is locro, made with choclo, zapallo, papa. All of these words have Quechua origin. We even have an Inca sun in our flags. Other Quechua words we use today are cancha, carpa, mate, poroto, chaucha, chacra, puna, humita, garúa, ojota, pupo, pampa, morocho. Another extremely important language for us is Guarani. That's why we say ananá instead of piña, or mandioca instead of yuca. This last word seems to come from the Taíno language, which is another important language because it was the one spoken here, and it was the first Native American language to get in contact with Spanish. The word canoa, it's usually considered the first indigenous word to enter to our language. From Taíno, we also have words like tiburón, maíz, batata, huracán, hamaca, barbacoa, or iguana. While in the north they call peanuts cacahuate, that has Nahuatl origin, at the south we use the word maní, taken from Taíno, or maybe Guarani. As you can see, this is a complex topic. Many of these languages have several varieties, many of them are currently extinct, and linguists do not always agree about the origin of many words. So if you think that there's any mistake in what I'm saying in this video, which is possible, of course, leave a comment below, but take into account that there are different theories about everything, and I can't include so much information in a video like this without being tedious. Sigamos. Apart from regular words, we can find some colloquial words or slang words that may be limited to small regions. In Argentina, for instance, we use the word pilcha as an informal way to say clothes. This word comes from Mapudungun, the language spoken by the Mapuches. The Chilean slang pololo also has this origin. The influence of Mapudungun in Spanish is relatively small if we compare it with Quechua. This one had the impulse of the Inca civilization, although they didn't create the language. Something similar happens in what today is Mexico. The Mayan language didn't have the relevance of Nahuatl maybe, but they also gave us really important words like cacao. But I didn't forget the word apapachar. You may be waiting for the real meaning. Well, according to linguists, this word does come from Nahuatl, but it has nothing to do with the soul. A possible origin is the word patzoa. Ts is usually replaced by ch in Spanish, like in words like chicle, that became chicle. So pachoa has to do with squeezing, and reduplication was a common practice in Nahuatl. So papachoa would be something like to squeeze, to tighten, to press, something repeatedly. Some authors relate this word with what the hen does when it hatches the eggs. So it could be related with to cover, to protect. You know Super Holly, don't you? She made a couple of videos with her father, David Taggi. He is a linguist who knows a lot about Nahuatl, and he says in one of those videos that apapachar has to do with the word pachitli. That means sponge or something spongy, foamy. And that there are other Nahuatl words related that may be used with the meaning of massage or even caress. But definitely, this word has nothing to do with the soul. Knowing that, what's the most beautiful word in Spanish in your opinion? Let me know in the comments below. The last part of this video is really interesting, and it has to do with words that we could have adopted from indigenous languages, but we haven't. And now we don't have a word for those things. Guiyalgalú, or something like that. It's a word from the Jine language that doesn't have an equivalent in Spanish or English, I think. When you try to do something many times and you don't succeed, you feel a special feeling of frustration. That feeling is Guiyalgalú. And when you finally give up, but not because of lack of motivation, but because you understand that what you were trying to do is not possible. After trying very hard and many times, you stop trying, but you know that you have made every possible thing to succeed, so you're in peace with yourself and with your decision to surrender. You can say ya vialash, which is an expression from Zapoteco. I told you Nahuatl gave us lots of words like chocolate, tomate, aguacate, cacahuate, elote, apapachar, chicle, but there are Nahuatl words that we didn't borrow and are quite interesting. For instance, moyoleuki. That means motivate yourself for doing something and at the same time means being in love, or itoliani, that is the desire of being admired. So if we used these words in Spanish, we could express this: tengo el deseo de ser admirado y me motivo a mí mismo para hacerlo, pero me siento muy frustrado por intentar tantas veces lo mismo sin éxito. Así que me retiro con paz y tranquilidad porque sé que hice todo lo que estaba a mi alcance y fue imposible. Just saying this. Tengo itoliani y moyoleuki, pero me siento guiyalgalú, así que ya vialash. Let me know if you would like me to make a full video about expressions that only exist in certain languages. An interesting topic. Ahora te dejo la chapa. Quédate. Pará. Porque la chapa de hoy tiene que ver con la misma palabra chapa. Y no te olvides de suscribirte, tocar la campanita, dar like y dejarme un comentario. Chao. Altas medias, ¿eh?